So this is basic setup number 6. This class, we're going to be going over setting up our validation rules. With validation, I'm referring to minimum staffing levels. With this system, we can put in rules, where we tell the system, how many people we need per hour of the day and on what shift. That way, if we ever fall short, it will be flagged and we'll see it visually on the schedule. We'll see exactly what shift is falling short. It's composed of a couple of different sections. The first thing we're going to be going over today is putting in what we call validation skill sets. Now, these are just positions that we are, validating. So if I'm a police department, I might be validating patrol and supervisor. If I'm a fire department, I might be validating, officer and captain. Anything like that. Pretty much just a position we're looking to count for minimum staffing purposes. After that, I'm going to show you how to assign it to people, the skill sets. Then we're going to create what is called validation shifts. Validation shifts, in a nutshell, are really just groups of shifts that we're validating. Once again, if I'm a police department, I might only be looking at patrol shifts for my patrol minimum staffing. But if I'm, validating for dispatchers, maybe I want those grouped separately. Maybe patrol doesn't care about dispatch and vice versa. We want to keep them separate. And that's also where we tell the system, what shifts count towards minimum staffing. That way, if we fall short for patrol, only the patrol shifts will be flagged as short and none of the other shifts. And then after that, I'm going to show you how to put in the rules per hour for each group of shifts, how many people we need working at each hour of the day. And then I'm going to show you a couple of other things with getting our shifts to turn a different color depending on our validation. Also, I'm going to show you how to add this little validation tile right here where I have a grid where it's broken down per hour of the day based on position and how I'm doing for each hour of the day, whether I'm at my minimum staffing level, I'm above my minimum staffing level, or if I'm below. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. For the bulk of what we're doing today, it can be found in one spot, which is nice. We don't have to kind of bounce all over the system. If we go to the administration menu and we scroll down and select validation from the left, these are all the screens we're going to be visiting today. So anytime, you're putting in validation rules or any, setup like that, it's all found under the validation option under the admin menu. So the first thing we're going to do is put in our skill sets. So let's click on validation and coverage skill sets. Now at this screen, it's broken up into two sections. The first section is the top. This is where we kind of assign a color for the shift tiles in our daily schedule. Oops. We can determine, we can pick a color that shows when validation is good, meaning we don't have any shortages. So like here, my color is green, so when I'm good, all my shifts show up green. And then on the right, you can pick a color when your validation fails. So if I ever fall short, for patrol or something like that, the shift where I'm falling short will show up red. So you'll see it right away when you log in, check the daily schedule, you'll see what shift is short. So to pick that color, you just click select color, and I would strongly recommend going with a kind of like a subtle color. You don't want anything too hard on the eyes, because then it becomes hard to read. A dull, subtle color, and then, oops, don't want to do that. So I like this green. You could also pick the font color, whether you want it black or white. So obviously black is easier to read. And the same thing for when the shift fails. You pick your color, black or white font, it's up to you. And then once you do that, we're going to actually put in our validation skill sets. Now, we can put in up to 6, and there is kind of a hierarchy, so to speak, when it comes to putting in these positions. So the system will look to fill the you know, in terms of looking at this list, the lowest object first, and then it kind of trickles up. So you'll notice right now I have a desk. I'm validating for desk. I'm validating for patrol. And I'm also validating for OIC, you know, you might call it supervisor, sergeant, whatever you want to do. You know, I have 3. You'll notice I have, you know, my bottom 3 are blank. That's fine. So you want to start from the top, right? So if you only have 2, you're going to have items 1 and 2. I wouldn't recommend going from the bottom up. Start from the top up. But you're going to put your most important position, your highest ranking validation skill set, last. So what would happen is, looking at this list, the system's going to look to validate or fill OICs first. Once OIC is filled, then it will fill patrol. Then it will fill desk. So when it comes to validation skill sets, you might have an employee that can count towards multiple, right? Obviously not at one time, but you know, maybe you have someone who is capable of counting as an OIC, and they're also, you know, capable of counting towards patrol. Well, how the system works is, once again, order of importance. If OIC is short and we assign someone on overtime who can count towards both, they're not going to count towards patrol. They're going to count towards OIC. They automatically get bumped up to the highest ranked, you know, validation skill set. And then once it's filled, anyone else you bring in, they're going to count towards the next, you know, the lower skill set that they're assigned to. So, you know, you're going to put in your validation skill sets in here. Once you are done, you're going to click Save. Don't worry about any of this other stuff at this point in the game right now. All we care about is putting those colors in and putting those skill sets in. So if you have the system up in front of you, by all means, go ahead and do it now if you want. And I'll open up the microphones. Does anyone have any questions regarding, you know, putting in our skill sets? And when everyone's ready to move on, just let me know, and we can move on to the next part of this setup. Okay, here we go. Everyone good so far?
Yes. Yep, we're good.
All right. All right, so let's move on to the next topic of discussion now. So we have our skill sets put in. Now it's time to actually determine who has these skill sets, right? Who can count towards what? And then we're going to do that, once again, validation screen. We're going to do that through a screen called Employee Validation Skill Sets. So in here, we're just going to click select employees, and you're going to click all your employees, select all. And then every row is an employee. Now, depending on how many skill sets you actually have, you might have one skill set, you might have two, you might have, in my case, I have three. Each skill set gets its own column. And it's literally as simple as checking the box next to the skill set that they possess, meaning the positions they can count towards. So in this case, Darren could count towards desk, or he could count towards patrol. Guy can only count towards patrol. Chris counts towards nothing. So if you have someone that doesn't, count towards anything, just leave it blank. So you can have a person belonging to one, you can have a person belonging to multiple, you could also have them belonging to nothing. So you're just going to kind of go right down the list. And for time purposes for this class, I'd recommend you do this kind of later. But you can follow along with the rest of what we go through. No problem. You can do it as we we do it here. You can do it on your system. This, if you want to save it for last, that's also fine too. So once you're done, you just click, you go through, you check the boxes next to everyone it applies to, and then you just click apply. And then you can close out. That's all you got to do. Very simple. Now, the next topic we're going to go over is creating validation shifts. And some people get confused, because it's validation shifts. Validation shifts are just a grouping of shifts. So let's click on validation shifts in the validation menu. So if you have if you have different departments that you're looking to validate separately, each group or department would get their own validation shift. If you're only validating for, say, patrol, like me, I only have one validation shift, and it's called patrol. So you're going to click new. You're going to put in a code, which is, you could have up to 5 characters. So, patrol, if you want to just call it minimum staffing, MIN, and then description, you put in the name of that validation shift, kind of the group of shifts that you're validating. And then on the right is a list of the shifts eligible to be validated. Now, where the system is pulling whether or not it's able to be validated from, if you remember when you set up your shifts, and I'll show you this here, in the setup shifts, we have these buttons down here. It's asking you, are we validating minimum staffing levels on this shift? So like my patrol day shift, yes, I'm validating minimum staffing levels. Anything you click yes down here for, shift-wise, is going to show up here. So if you're missing some shifts, go back to setup shifts and, go to the shift, click yes, and then, go back to this screen and it will appear. And then all you do is you just check the boxes next to the shifts that count towards that specific validation shift. So like here for patrol, both days and nights are being counted towards the patrol validation shift. And when you're done, you just click save. If you ever needed to delete a validation shift, you could just highlight either the code or description, doesn't matter, and click delete. So I have the microphones open. Does anyone have any questions, regarding the concept of a validation shift, or maybe how, they would do it? Everyone good with validation shifts and what they mean to the system? So if you're a larger department, you might have a patrol validation shift, you might have a detective validation shift, you might even have a dispatch validation shift. That's how we validate kind of separately. We don't want to lump them all up together. We don't want our dispatch shift showing short because we're down a patrol guy when they have nothing to do with each other. So that's why we separate them via validation shifts. So if you want, you can go ahead and put in your own validation shifts. We have the time. Put in your validation shifts, and if you have any questions or need any help, just let me know. We'll give it a few minutes. Like I said, if you see that you're missing some shifts under the required shift section, well then just go back to set up shifts and check that yes for validating minimum staffing levels. And if you're done, just let me know.
Okay. Unmuted. So didn't you say that the right-hand column and the left-hand column were supposed to basically match up? The required shifts goes to the it interacts with the left-hand side, the validation shift sets?
Well, the validation shift set is just the name of the groupings, and then on the right, you're going to check the boxes next to all the shifts that belong to that grouping.
Okay, so you can't drag and drop on this particular screen?
No. Well, so here we'll start from scratch. So let's call this one. I'm going to click new. I'm going to say minimum staffing, and then I'm going to write minimum staffing as the description. And here are a list of all available shifts. Maybe it's just days for this one. I'm not validating nights with this shift. I click save. Save successful. Okay, that's all you got to do.
Okay, and does it matter on the left-hand side where you have the two columns, does it matter which one you have highlighted?
No. Description is what you're going to be seeing for the most part. The code is just a way for the system to identify that shift. So it's kind of like on the back end. So code just up to 5 characters. Description, you could actually write out what that grouping is.
Okay.
And when you're done, just let me know, and we will continue with the setup.
Sorry, I'm done.
Everyone else finished, or are they still working? All right, great. So let's move on. Now we have to put in our rules based on the validation shift. And the rules are just referencing, how many people do we need at each hour of the day. So if we go to validation rules by hour, not validation job rules, that's something totally different. Validation rules by hour is what we want. Okay, so actually, I'm going to unmute the mics really quick. Does anyone, if each person could let me know how their department does, is your minimum staffing levels, are they the same regardless of what day of the week it is, or do you have different levels for different days of the week?
We have different levels for different days of the week and different times of the day.
Okay, so like, Monday through Friday, or whatever, it's one thing, and then maybe on the weekend we need more people, so, kind of like that?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is, depending on how many validation shifts you have, you might just have one. Select it from the drop-down. So I'm just going to, do patrol. And now we have a row for each day of the week. What we need to do is click this button next to the day, and it expands that. And then here for each column, that's representing an hour. So the column with 4 zeros in it is representing midnight to 1 a.m. The 100 column is representing 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. We can only do it in hour increments. We can't do it in kind of half hour or, whatever amount increments. It has to be an hour. So you're just going to pop in the number of people you need per hour of the day for each position. And when you're done, you don't need to actually save it. You can just collapse it and move right on to the next one. So in this case, I just need one person working desk, 2 people working patrol, and 1 person working OIC, all hours of the day. If it changes, maybe starting at 7, we need 3 patrol guys. You would just, put in 3 for however many hours, necessary. And you're just going to go ahead and do that for each day. And then click save. And if you have multiple shifts, you just, oh, by the way, if, like, say for patrol, maybe I'm not validating for desk, just put 0. That's all. So it's almost like it doesn't exist. You just put 0 in for any time you don't need that position, or if you don't need that position at all, you just leave it as 0 across the board. Now that's if you were doing it per day. If your minimum staffing levels are the same every day of the week, you could go to day of week drop down and click all. Now you'll notice there's only one thing you can expand. So we're just setting these rules for every single day of the week. That's only if your staffing levels are the same every single day. When you're done, you just click save. That's it. So the mics are open if anyone has any questions. If not, go ahead and give it a try on your system.
Police dispatchers. What are we doing? 7? So 7 to 15.
When you're done, just let me know.
I have a question for you. If I click on the apply to other days of the week, is that going to override a day that is different if I've already entered that?
Yes. Well, you check the box next to the days you want to do that for. However, depending on like where your cursor is, I've seen cases of certain hours missing. That's why, I kind of said just go through day by day. It takes a little bit longer, but that's, you're 100% sure that the days, per the levels per hour are good.
Okay, I've gotten a couple days in, so I think we can probably move on.
Okay. All right. So, well, we actually only have, two things left, and they both have to deal with the dashboard. So I don't know if anyone here has actually sat in on the dashboard creation class. I'm just going to show you one. If you already have your daily schedule created, we're going to be going back to that and putting in another setting to now validate the shift. So let's do that first. So we want to be on our daily schedule. We want to click Edit Dashboard. Now what you want to do for any shift that was included in a validation shift, we want to click this blue button towards the left to edit it. And we want to scroll down to where it says Validate Shift. We want to check that box so it's on, and then select the validation shift it's counting towards. When we're done, we click Apply and Use. So let me unmute the mics. Sorry, the mics are open. So you're going to want to do that for every shift that you're validating on the daily schedule. Once again, we're going to click this blue button right here. Scroll down to the bottom, check the box for Validate Shift, and select the shift. If you do, accidentally open up a shift that isn't included in the validation shift, when you turn on the box, you're going to get an error message. So that is going to let you know, hey, well, this isn't in a validation shift. So you'll only be able to check the box for shifts that are actually included in validation. And then the last thing I'm going to show you, you can feel free to put this wherever you want, but I like throwing in this validation tile on my daily schedule. If you were to add a new tile from the editor, we go to the tile catalog. The tile is called Hourly Validation, not Job Validation, just Hourly Validation. I want to click Use Timer. And then we just select the validation shift we want to show. So if you have multiple validation shifts, you would have to have multiple grids like this. Leave days past and future set to 0. Click Apply and Use. So when I click Save and I exit, we see here how I'm doing based on those rules we have. So for instance, if I were to take some people off the schedule, now you see it no longer says +2 across the board. Now it says I'm only in a surplus of 1 from midnight to 7 a.m. and then from 7 p.m. to midnight, but then from 7 to 7, I'm at my minimum staffing level, so let's take one more person off. Now you see I'm falling short on the day shift, so that shift has now turned red, and we see right here that I'm short a desk person from 7 to 7. So green with no numbers means you're at minimum staffing. Green with a number, like a plus, whatever, that's how many people you're over minimum staffing. And then red minus whatever number is how many people you're short minimum staffing level-wise. So does anyone have any questions about the tiles or putting in that grid, or anything we went over today, really, because that's the last step as far as setting up validation in the system. Okay. Well, if everyone's good, I'll go ahead and end the meeting. That was all I had for you today. I just want to add that, if you ever do run into problems or you have any questions, feel free to sign up for a help out. They are kind of scheduled sporadically, but we do try and update them based on availability in the office. So, what you saw one day, might not necessarily be what you see another day. We might have added more classes or added a help out. But those are available. It's a 45-minute one-on-one session where we work directly on your system. So you also have that. You have this video to refer back to at any point in time as well. So if no one has any other questions, I'll go ahead and close out the meeting. All right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Everyone have a good day and happy holidays.
You too.